Good morning, everybody. I'm Evelyn Thoren. I am your host. This is the Dawn Patrol. We go from 6 to 7, and stay with us for City Life from 7 to 8. My co-hosts, Sam Chase, Bob Hoey. We have John McDonough behind the camera, sometimes on the camera. We are expecting Chelmsford School Committee John Moses to come in at 7 o'clock. We can talk about his nonprofit. We'll see what's up with that. He was supposed to send me some stuff. He didn't, but that's okay. If he brings it, great. If not, well, we're still going to have a great discussion.
He sent me a post.
He did? Great. So, he had said he was going to send it to me, but then I didn't know. I don't care. I'm hoping
Why
he,
are pants on fire?
well, no, I don't care. I'm happy that
He
he
can
sent
certainly
something.
talk about it.
Oh, yeah. You just kind of turn him on. He's good.
Yep.
With regard to that. So it's chilly coming in this morning. My statement always has been, just wait a while, it's New England. I'm not expecting any rain or snow, at least not in Lowell, over the next few days. We did have some rain, but it's not enough. We're still in a drought situation. Please be careful if you have like fire pits or any number of things outside that you enjoy in the evenings, especially since it's getting a little bit on the cool side. So we can talk about all the politics stuff in the first hour, because I don't think that John Moses will agree with us if we start that in the second hour, unless you want to kind of jab the guy. I don't want to blindside him either. There's a number of things that was on Facebook that really torqued me. I should have taken a picture and sent it to John, but mostly it's people who, and you can tell by the posts and by what they are sharing with their friends and or others that are on Facebook. And it has to do with Democrats, basically. Many of them are progressives, but I haven't had discussions with them, so I hate to pigeonhole them or label them, even though I know that if they thought that I voted for Trump, that they wouldn't hesitate to put me in some kind of a little cubbyhole someplace, label me, and then try to, close the book on it. But there was one that really disturbed me, and it said that MAGA parents are teaching their children, and then they list all of the different things, like they're entitled, and they don't have to say they're sorry, and it went down a list of a lot of negative things. My response, I did not respond on Facebook because it can get a little bit dicey.
It's a waste of time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Total waste of time.
However, I will say that in some of the things that have been on Facebook, that when I have responded with a link to a more liberal news agency or media, usually all comments stop. I have one of those to share also. But this bothered me because I was on a school committee for 18 years. I was involved in the Chelmsford Public School System for 25 years, 30 years, as long as my kids were all there, and then some. And there was nothing to do with a Make America Great Again movement in those years, in the late 80s and 90s. And I came in contact with a lot of parents, and the parenting style or what they believed or however they did stuff fit into this category regardless of their political affiliation. So whatever you're teaching your children isn't always affiliated with being a Democrat or Republican or something else. So I just wanted to make that comment for people to be thinking about that particular piece.
Well, again, it goes back, and it's very simple. The people who preach tolerance are among the most intolerant people I think I've ever come across, okay? Because there is no tolerance. There's my set of beliefs. I have the moral high ground, and if you don't share my beliefs, you are just a bad, despicable person. And that's the message. It really isn't any more complicated than that. So my opinion is, you see that stuff on Facebook, you just scroll right by it.
I'd just like to say this today to start after listening to Evelyn. I come here on a Thursday, and I mean this. I've said this before several times. It's almost like going to school. I learn something all the time, and it's when you hang around with people that can teach you something, it's incredible. I've taught my grandchildren, listen, find out whose mother's a teacher. Hang around with them. I did. That's what I told my 5 grandchildren.
Great advice.
Not the youngest one yet, it's only
advice.
4, but the 8-year-old I did absolutely was embarrassed by me wearing a Trump shirt, Save America, Trump hat. She's 8 years old, 3rd grade. She'd walk 15 feet away from me when I picked her up at school. She did not like me wearing it. No. I have a 14-year-old grandson, said nothing at all about me, the way I was dressed, about the election, could care less either way. He's 14. The 18-year-old named after me, yes, Papa, yes, okay? But this is the one that got to me, my oldest granddaughter. She graduated from college, civil engineering
engineer.
degree, yeah, got a nice job. I mean, I'm really impressed, the Latin Lyceum, she went through everything.
Good for her.
And I know she wasn't talking to me as much. I felt this because I'm Trump and she was for the Democrats, right? So after the election, I was gloating, I'm not going to lie, and I said to her, hey, what happened? Because they thought Trump didn't have a chance. And I says, honey, I know why you voted for the Democrats. They helped you pay for her college. I know she got a piece. They already did that to some kids. They paid their college. They bought their votes. It was terrible what they did to students. It really was. And education, to me, needs a lot of work, and it's coming. But sitting between you two, and you're from Chelmsford, there's nothing better for me. It just helps me, because I don't wear a Trump hat no more right now, and I don't want to wear my friends' business hats around the city, because I don't want to.
I just think...
But I do wear a Gitcher hat now, just so
That's
you know,
okay.
Sam.
That's okay. I mean, well, we all like Eric Gitcher, but, to your point, and I want to just tell you, Bob, I've known you for a couple of years now, and it goes both ways. I mean, I've learned things from you, all right? So
Good.
just so that you know that, all right? We all have something that we can share and pass on to other folks. So I've learned things from you, so it's a two-way street. I'm the oldest one in the room. I'll be 78 in March. I think I have a pretty good handle on human nature. I've been exposed to many different kinds of people and cultures. I've traveled all over the world and spent quite a bit of time in other countries. And I think I have a pretty good handle on human nature. All different kinds of people, all different kinds of opinions. I have never in my life shut off a relationship because of somebody else's political point of view. Never. And I never will. All right? I look on Facebook and I see people, I'm going to unfriend you. I've never done that.
Don't you find that childish?
It is childish.
I'm going to take my ball and go home because you're not playing it the way I
I've never done
want.
that, and I never will. I have 2 very, very good friends that I've known for, well, one for almost 40 years, and another for maybe 50 years, okay? And they are about as hard left progressive as you can get. And we're still friends. And occasionally we will talk politics, but it's always non-acrimonious, okay? And this is America. They are entitled to their opinion.
Well, that's where
I am
entitlement
more
works.
conservative. I'm not a Republican, because I have masses of problems with the Republican Party, and I have for years, okay? I've been unenrolled for at least 40 years. But I am a more conservative person than you typically find in Massachusetts, all right? So I'm a little bit out of step. That's okay, all right? But this business of seeing everything, and I mean everything, through a political prism there's something wrong with people, I think, who think that way. And it gives you a very warped point of view, and I would say the same is true on the right. I mean, you have hard right people who are just as bad, in my opinion. They will not listen, they will not, and you know what? They're entitled to do that if that's what they want to do, okay? But it's unproductive, and it's just, to me, it's not the way to look at the world.
Well, when
through this straitjacket of a political line and point of view, because it's not that people disagree. You are now my mortal enemy because you don't think the way I do. That's really what's going on here.
And
All right.
just to touch one last thing,
Yeah.
so I don't forget this. That's why I don't mean I'm just throwing Trump's hat away. I'll save it for the next election. Or I just don't
No,
want
he's
to
not
rub it.
running- he's
I
not
live in
running
a
again.
state. Listen, look at us. Not everyone, but most of us on this show were Trumpers. Let's face it, that's what we were, and we finally had a win. But I don't want to rub it in anybody's face, especially in Massachusetts. You're better off not having, don't mention it. Just leave the hat aside and let's see what they can do to fix the country. Because I'm telling you, I did as much polling as anybody, especially older people than myself.
You had a
And
good pulse. You had a good pulse on
They
it.
were telling me, right there, every one of them was telling me this country's on the wrong tracks. It's going down the wrong hole. We got to save it. That's all I heard. And I even predicted on this show that he'd win the popular vote. You know why I did that, Evelyn? And by the way, let's start talking holidays because you look good in red. Always do, kid. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just talk local politics, Sam, because we have big, big issues in this city. Lowell.
Yeah.
I don't think Chelmsford has as many. You
Well,
have your own.
well,
You have your own issues.
All the cities and towns in this state for the
Yeah.
upcoming fiscal year are in trouble. All of us
I
are.
agree.
Okay,
I
so
agree.
yeah, there will be issues. There will be issues. Maybe Lowell more so, because Lowell relies more on state aid.
Yeah.
You
Well,
get 60% of your budget from state aid. That's not true in.
Best bang for the buck, Sam.
Yeah,
Chase
but
always
it's not
says,
true
I
in
know.
the suburbs get more of their revenue from the local property tax.
But what I'd like to hear out of you two this morning, just to make my day, how do you feel about our governor? Anybody have a comment?
Well, I think that she has a lot to learn. And in many ways, she's not as bad as I thought she was going to be. Okay, but I think that, she comes out on the liberal news media and basically agrees with several other governors that she's going to protect all of the people that are in this state illegally. So, and not allow any deportations and all this other stuff.
She has no power or authority to do that. The state can't do that.
Well, if you have a sanctuary city, or this is a sanctuary state, then there's certain things. Now,
You can
what-
refuse to cooperate with the federal authorities. That is the extent of your power. You cannot prevent federal officers from doing their job, okay? You
Well, it'll
can't.
be interesting to see how this all works,
Yeah.
but he asked the question about the governor. I
Oh.
think that with the extra money that she had because of the former governor, she's trying to figure out how to spend it, which is something I find I don't like doing that. I don't want to try, just because I have something, money in my, how they say that the money's burning in your pocket, and you got to get rid of it?
Burning a hole in your pocket,
Yeah,
right.
and I don't agree with that. So, Sam, do you have an opinion on that? And then I want to go back
Yes.
to some things because you made comments, and I'd like to
Okay.
bring up some other information.
As far as Maura Healey is concerned, I agree with you. She has surprised me in some respects. She clearly is a social justice warrior. There's no question about that. So that doesn't surprise me that she takes the left view on, but she appears to me to be a lot more fiscally conservative than I would expect a Democrat to be. I mean, she has done a number of things to indicate to me that she is concerned about the level of taxation and what the state spends. So that has surprised me a bit, that she has been much more conservative in the fiscal area than I would have expected any Democrat to be. So,
But she's still looking to spend the money.
yeah, right, well, exactly, because it's there. I mean,
And to expand the definition
but
in terms of the education,
she's
when we had the
not-
millionaire's tax?
she is, but that was already in place when it
But she's
came
looking to
in.
redefine.
This is what bothered me mostly about her, is when she mentioned that, and she said she won't let the state troopers do any work at all around deportation. That was one thing. But what really got me is my granddaughter, again, is senior at Lowell. She's in the UMass Conference Center. And that's, most of the seniors were down there. It was like a better living than a dorm. So what they did is all right, you guys got to get out. either go back with your family, which my granddaughter came to our house because we only live about a mile away from the college. She came to our house, and the rest went back to the dorms, and they filled it with migrants. But yet Lowell's got a homeless problem. Now I hope they take the migrants out of there and put our homeless in there. We have to have a bigger shelter. We don't have one. Why didn't they do that? Why didn't you Lowell do that? They came to City Hall the other night, and boy, did they complain, you Lowell people. Woo! But they got it off Eric Kitchen, let me tell you right now. Once they started the dump on this city, you should have heard what he said to them. It was beautiful. And thank you for that time, too, by the way. But think of that. They tell my granddaughter, senior year, go home, get out of here. That bothered me. I'm not going to lie.
Well,
It bothered me.
this is one reason people voted for Trump.
Well, there's a
think,
lot of
yeah,
reasons.
The border thing was huge, and I mean, I think all the pundits have it right. You know, the economy was first, and the border was second. I think that's accurate. I mean, I think that's how people were feeling.
Right, and so there's a lot of reasons why people voted for Trump. They're not all Trumpeteers or whatever you call them. They're not all like that.
You know how I feel about the man.
Well, I'm not so overly thrilled either.
I don't like him,
however,
okay? But you, again,
you agree with the policies. We've had that conversation.
people vote for the policies.
In other Thursdays.
Right, they
Yeah.
vote for the policies.
And so you hear a lot on more liberal media programs, the people that are saying, I voted for Trump not because I wanted Trump, but because I agreed with what he was going to do.
Right.
I voted for Trump because Harris couldn't give me any answers. I voted for Trump because I don't like the way everything has turned out since Biden got elected. So you have people, it's kind of like people that voted for Harris because they didn't like Trump. They didn't vote for her policies. They voted for her because they didn't like him. Or they voted for her because they didn't know any better. I'll claim that they're not educated enough in everything. They don't even know what all the different wars are that we fought. The American history is like lost to an awful lot of people.
I think the main reason why I voted Trump and always was a Trumper is because of his wife, to be honest with you. I know the goodness in me is my wife. I always say it, behind every good man, Sam, right?
Democrats
There's a great woman. That's how I feel
without a
about
doubt.
life.
Good morning. The Democrats, they did it to themselves, waving their finger at us. I hope MAGA is in power for the next 12 years. The people had enough of the lying government the last 4 years. That's why she lost. There's a lot of reasons why she lost. I think that she relied...
But I think there's a lot of truth in that statement, in those
Well,
statements.
absolutely, because you can't really put it all up there. There's a lot of reasons why she lost, and it was almost as if, I don't think that she worked, obviously she didn't work the same way that Trump did, so it didn't seem as though she really wanted it. But
I think
people would disagree with me.
Let me just interrupt you for 1 second, and I'll disagree with you in that regard. I think for Harris, she worked hard, okay? She worked, no, she did.
You had to be in that frame of reference. Okay, I gotcha.
And she worked a lot harder than Hillary Clinton did. She did. She ran a much more aggressive campaign and worked a lot harder than Hillary Clinton did.
Well, there's also a lot of things that are coming out currently that she paid Oprah $1 million, and Oprah said, well, I didn't take any money. And then she gave, $500,000 to, I'm trying to think of the, another person before they did that podcast. So she was giving money to have the podcast.
Apparently
it wasn't as if
true.
they were doing it because they actually supported everything that she did. Yes, John?
Your announcement, you can't read it.
Can't read the announcement.
You can't enlarge it? Well, okay, so that particular one,
Do you remember what it says?
It's even
Yeah.
more blurry.
oh, no, I can read that.
There you go.
There are,
When it comes along.
yeah, when we get to that point, I can see that enough so that people will be able to hear it, even though it's slightly blurred. And maybe that's my eyesight. I have no idea.
Well, did you take a picture of this, or how did you create this?
It was on Facebook, and I saved it to my telephone, and then I sent it to you through pictures.
Okay. Understood, thanks.
All right, so we keep getting off on some of these different tangents. So to go back a little bit in the conversation,
You were talking about why she lost.
right, I know that part, but I mean, I'm going way back to where we get off on other tangents when we first started.
That's my fault. I usually
Don't worry about
cause
it.
that. Yeah.
I just want to, I'm letting you guys talk, and I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to absolutely control the conversation here, because sometimes one thing leads into a very good conversation to something else. But when we first started, we talked about the post that basically said that MAGA parents are teaching their kids certain things, and I said, no, you have liberal parents that are teaching them too. They're just trying to create problems with what, if anybody's reading it, that they're thinking that they're out there, they're outliers in terms of what's going on. Because I know thousands of people that have had kids, especially being on a school committee over all the years, and it wasn't a particular political party that you could say, oh, they must be a Democrat because those kids are acting that way. Has nothing to do with that. But there are other things that Sam brought up in terms of tolerance versus intolerance. And I thought, and one of the other posts made a comment about, well, tolerance is great, and, and we'll talk to you, and that, however, if you don't agree with me, then you aren't very tolerant, are you? Which goes along with what you had stated. And I'm looking at this going,
It's not rocket
are
science.
you reading these things that
Yeah.
you're posting on, on your Facebook page? Well, another one of the things that also had come up, now I gotta find it again, is it had to do with, let me see.
While you're looking that up, can I just say what Sam also said, the economy? My family is basically dumping on me right now. They think I go to Market Basket or Demoulas's, whatever you want to call it, to socialize. I have,
don't?
really, no, I
don't?
go
You're
the
there.
last place
I go
I'd
there
My
about-
father did.
I go there about four times a week because I got 4 adults, a couple of children that eat at my house.
You have to buy a lot of groceries.
And I'm an expert at just going there with about $120 on me. And I get to the register, and without looking, I'm always just a few dollars off. And I do that about 4 times
That's
a
pretty
week.
good.
Yeah, and believe me, we spend money eating out also. So, I mean, when you talk about food, there's no doubt about it. Pocketbook issues like
Oh, yeah,
just our food bill alone, never mind gas, had a lot of people going to the polls. You're right on that. I think you're right on the
Well,
money.
the thing that, going back to the comment that was,
Hold that thought, read this one.
yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Once the public saw through Barack's bull fertilizer, that's when the Democrats, I like the way they spell that, Democrats lost their message, okay? I think that's part of it, and it's funny because I was about to make a comment that kind of mirrors that commenter, something that we saw earlier. If you want people to vote for you, you can't call them stupid and deplorables, okay? You can't do that. So don't underestimate the effect of what the previous commenter said about people wagging their finger in your face. A lot of people are sick and tired of being told that they are, less than human because they hold certain opinions. People don't like to be told.
And on that same note, Sam?
And that's a big factor. I mean, a lot of people I spoke to said, I'm tired of being told that I'm living my life wrong and I'm not a very smart person. I'm tired of hearing that because that's what people hear, all right?
I'll tell you, this is just my opinion. This is how I felt. I always felt it was a race war. This whole election, it was white against black, period. This is how I felt.
well.
When I listened to Mrs. Obama, she made me feel like she hated me. And then I hear comments about, you're a Catholic, you're no good, this and that. It was hate.
I think that they just
Hate-
pigeonholed everybody in, that if you liked Trump,
I'll just say
regardless,
this.
and then they had
Yeah,
their
but-
talking points
And I'll
about
try
whatever
to
you
end
represented. Go ahead,
with
Bob.
my feeling on it. I think hate was a big part of this election, and they had a whole lot more hate on their side than we did. That's all.
So
Both
we-
sides had hate. but they have the biggest part.
So
And they
after
paid the price.
After tolerance, and
Yeah.
after what people are trying to teach their kids or not teach their children, regardless of what particular political party they have, because the list of things that was on that particular post, you can go back decades, and it's still the same, and it has nothing to do with whether you're a Democrat or Republican necessarily. But there was another post that talked about where the educated people are. The educated people are on the East Coast and the West Coast.
Oh, I saw that.
And people don't want to live where the reading level of the adult population is sixth grade or below, and where education isn't valued, and where children will not have the best life.
So
And
that's a very complicated roundabout way of saying that people in the red states are stupid.
Well, I was going to
That's
go
all-
there.
that's
Thank you
all
for saying that.
That's all that means.
Can you read this one?
Thanks for speaking the other night, Mr. Hoey. I'm proud of the council, pushing back on the opponents. Except for Councilor Janess, I respect his opinion, but he offers no solutions. He's a true limousine liberal. And I love that term, limousine liberal. You know who started that, don't you? Who coined that phrase? It was,
Springer?
although Cliff would be worthy of that phrase. But the person who coined that phrase was the late Representative Rourke. Ray
Rourke?
Yeah, Ray Rourke. Yeah, he's the one who came up, he's the one who invented limousine liberal. And the first time I heard him say it, I thought, my God, that is exactly the point. That was so descriptive. So limousine liberal means very rich people who are not affected at all by anything, sitting in judgment of the rest of us, telling us how we need to have very left-wing liberal policies, okay? And the policies don't really affect them. So,
Well, anyway,
you know,
with regard to
Well,
that
Bob, you
particular...
want to speak to Tuesday night?
yeah, what happened Tuesday
Well,
night?
it was about the homelessness. I
think I'll give up.
It's in cities all over. Brockton and other cities have done the same thing. It's just an ordinance to say you can't put tent up in public
And
property.
you spoke at the city council
Yeah, I
meeting.
spoke in favor. There might have been 5, 6 people tops that spoke in favor, and there might have been about 45 that spoke against it. Most of them, to me, were from the college, Ulol area, and 200 Market Street, where Mr. Janess is from. So, of course, he voted with that 46 that was against it because, he's either not going to run or he's going to get beat.
So what did you
I'll
say?
tell you, well,
Tell us what you said.
all right, if I can remember exactly what I said this. I said, I remember going down on a hot day. This is the point I was trying to make. And I looked in the pool, and there was 2 kids swimming in the pool. It's like 90 degrees. It was in August. 4 lifeguards. This is the South Common, where we have a lot of
The
drug
lifeguards
problems.
outnumbered the swimmers.
Yeah. But then I drove immediately. I went to the North Common. There was almost 90 people, between 60 and 100, swimming in that pool. And I'm looking at that housing, and I'm saying, why is that? And they said, because most of the housing, the other North Common housing, is family orientated. But the South Common, that housing project's not like it used to be, and I come from the Shaughnessy housing projects. Bishop Markham was always family orientated. But now it's a lot of lonely older people, handicapped people, single people. I knew by driving taxis, we were talking education. I don't want to bounce around too much, but, all my friends that went to college just to get more on their pension went for criminology, which isn't, to me, a real great, I don't know what you call a college degree, but I'd rather see an engineering degree or a chemistry degree than criminology. I learned more about
They can't do
crime
those other
than they'll ever
degrees.
think of. And all I was a 40-year roofer, 10-year cab driver, 4 years in Uber, and then I did quite a bit of bartending in my life, and I know people. And the drugs that come out of that housing project might be more than what's coming in through automobiles. And it's only common sense, folks. If you're criminology, right, Oxycontin and those type of pills cost sometimes $80. And it's a pill problem still in America, and cocaine, especially in Lowell area, it's bad. But the drug dealers know how to get to those housing people. Don't forget, lonely people living with no money, just basically because they only have to pay like $130 a month to live there. And they loaded that housing with a lot of drug problems. They should be paying half this price, believe me, and that's a federal, the housing project's federal. They should be paying their share of trying to clean up this South Common. And I'm going to keep banging this issue until that place is clean.
So your point before the council
Yeah,
is that
what's that?
the reason you only had 2 kids in the pool is because,
Of those issues. And Sam, thank you for helping me, because this is, think of how many people I said in that 8-of-a-mile radius have children. I don't want to, you go all the way down to Lawrence Street and think of everything between that and St. Anthony's Parish, that district is getting wiped out. And they're some of the nicest people on the planet. I lived next to the Portuguese people my whole life, the Azores. That's my neighborhood, even though I'm in Belvedere now. I moved
Bobby,
up.
did you stick around for the end of the meeting? They said there was a rabble-rousing after the meeting
Yeah,
on
the
the
mayor was
sidewalk.
so good, like this. This is the mayor. I'll try to imitate that. Throw him out. Throw that one out. A couple, I mean, he didn't really
I
throw a
love
lot of people out, but he told the cops, get rid of that one. You know, get rid of that one. They took abuse, our city council, when they're trying to fix an issue.
Oh, on the sidewalk after, there's reports that there was some kind of,
I left about a half hour before, because that was just the stragglers, you know? I went to
so you weren't there for the,
beginning of the meeting,
Walking out.
and I stayed there till the city council was done speaking.
understood. Thank you.
Didn't even catch their vote. I knew how the vote was going to go.
You
and it
can
was-
read this one, Bobby.
Especially on the news, they keep telling us how bad we are. I hope the public open up their eyes and turn them off. Jay.
Well, that's dealing with how you have one party being highly critical of another party without even knowing it, or whoever they are, and that comes back to the post that I had in terms of education. When you take a look at an analysis of the red states and the blue states, and then you go into each of the states and you take and look and see where the red was in their counties in the blue. In the state of California, because last week we put that picture up, where the blue is only a narrow edge on that very large state.
where the population concentrations are.
Well, also
That's
where
what
you
find
had,
it.
well, we won't go into what the details are. And then pretty much the rest of the state is red. Same thing with New York State. You have blue as far as New York City goes, and down in that area, and then you have like Buffalo or whatever, but almost every other county is red. So when they claim in an article that the most education is on the east and the west coast, to a certain extent, that's true. I looked up, and I would have liked to have said to this person, did you do any research on this? I looked up and I asked, what is the most educated state in the Union? Massachusetts. Part of it is because of how many colleges we have here. So it depends on what their criteria was. I didn't get into the weeds. And then, what is the most educated city? And according to whatever the liberal article was that was out there, like Politico or something, it said that Atlanta, Georgia is the most educated city. That didn't make any sense to me, but that's okay. And then there was a city in Florida that was highly educated, and then you get back, further north. So if you see any of these posts and you are leaning towards agreeing with the post, please do a little research. The homeless problem will go away once the city council is returned from up north. What is that trip costing the city? Oh, are they on a retreat?
I don't even know about that.
Now, just a
You know-
second. The other day, who was from the city council? They were in here the other day. And it's not costing the city a red cent. The Canadians are paying for the trip. So
that's good.
The Canadians they're all driving, the city council, to my understanding, my takeaway, they're driving up, the city council are driving up there, and the Canadians are taking care of their hotel, and they're gonna
Hey,
give them food.
there you go. That's good.
So, that's
know,
the
I
plan.
want to.
And they're gonna show the Lowell City Council
Sam,
how
I'm so
they
sorry.
handle.
Go ahead.
I will forget this
Homelessness.
totally.
Go ahead.
The message
You need
I
to
was
write it
trying,
down.
yeah, I know, I should write things down, but you know what? I think when you go down to speak at the city hall and you speak without reading something off paper, I think even if you make a mistake, you're much better off. That's just my opinion.
I agree with you. It's much more effective.
Just my opinion,
Much-
but
you're right.
This is the
Absolutely
message
right.
I was trying to convey, and I didn't.
Yep.
We look at the largest school, you get 800 to almost 1,000 children in that school, right there alone, next to this drug deal, and needles are everywhere, all that stuff. I knew that. I says, but nobody's talking about the real problem to me, that 8th of a mile radius. I grew up in it. I grew up with the people from Azores. You know why they get no respect? Think of this. I lived here my whole life. Number one, they called it Operation Azores. A long time ago, a bunch of people got caught selling cocaine. What, white people weren't selling cocaine? Give me a break. That was the worst thing they ever did, because I grew up in that neighborhood. These people put vinyl siding, can grow tomatoes through concrete, and they kept the property immaculate and never looked for help from the city. And nobody ever talks about this district and who they have representing it. I'm not going to stand for it. There's private stores that are gambling and causing grief to these same people, and they're one of the best nationalities in the city of Lowell, one of the best. And we have many good ones, but they're one of the best, and they're getting abused. They got no representation. I live in District 3. I wish David Coach, listen to me. All you people that ran before, come out and run. That district needs representation. Thank you, and I'm
There
done
you go,
with that
political,
issue.
and I want
I
to...
hope I conveyed it.
No, you did. That, very powerful. And you just proved your point that if you speak without notes, it's more effective, right?
I
we
think
could
so.
There you go.
Do this one quick.
So, you want me to do it, or
Yeah.
Evelyn?
Well, you got to put it up there first.
Okay.
I
And then I
thought it
want
was
to
up
talk
there.
about
Sorry.
what Evelyn said about education. Thanks for the clarification, comrade. Okay, that's good. So getting back to Evelyn's point on education, hate to paraphrase Bill Clinton, but it all depends on what you mean by the term education. Okay, so the posts that you're seeing on Facebook, the posters are equating education with credentials, okay? Degrees, college degrees. And let me ask you a question. I'll ask the panel. The two best presidents that we ever had, do you know generally what the historians say about that? The two, what historians,
I would say-
historians generally agree that these two men were the best presidents. Who, do you know?
My guess would be, one would be Lincoln.
Yes?
And two, I would say John F. Kennedy, so I don't know.
All right, well, I think...
No, it
you-
goes back further,
you-
doesn't
You're
it?
half right. Okay, so most historians agree that Lincoln and Washington
Yeah,
were
okay.
our best presidents. George Washington had less than 2
Is
years.
this from Bill O'Reilly?
No, this is my reading, and I
understand.
Okay.
Bill O'Reilly mimicked the same thing.
So, yeah, thank you. Well, we're about the
I
same age.
don't listen to Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, I do. I love the guy.
Well, I don't listen to him anymore.
He mentioned you.
Huh?
He mentioned you in his
Oh, good. Did he? Oh, good.
And I got books for you from him.
So I've read most of his books. I want to
They're
read.
very good.
I want to read his new one on the presidents, which I haven't read yet. But Washington had less than 2 years formal education, and Lincoln had about 1.5 years of formal education. I challenge almost anybody in the audience to pick up any document that George Washington wrote, and you will, even if you have a master's degree in English, you will have a hard time getting through it, okay? Abe Lincoln, before he was president, was by all accounts, contemporary accounts, an excellent lawyer. This is a man with less than 2 years formal education who passed the Illinois bar on the first try and became a lawyer. So don't confuse education with credentials. There are a lot of people out there that do not have college degrees, and some who don't have high school diplomas, that are highly, highly educated people. Because once you learn how to read, and once you develop a good reading skill, the education is up to you after that point.
Well,
It's
that's-
up to you, okay?
That's why when I was on the school committee, and part of the mission statement was lifelong learner.
Exactly.
And if you truly are a lifelong learner, you are not going to take anybody's word for something if it kind of, you're like, okay, so what are they really saying here? Now, if you're lazy, that's a different situation. So in these different posts, rather than taking their word for it and saying, oh, I agree with this, and that includes my husband's posts, I do the research to find out a little bit more about it, so I have a better clue as to where they're coming from. Another one of the posts that dealt with doing research on things was that somebody made a comment, and this was not from someone that was a progressive Democrat, but they made a comment, something about that the way that Trump had answered a question on whether or not he asked for God's forgiveness. Now, this is back in 2017, I think, or 2015, excuse me. So I asked my phone, when did he say this? It goes back to 2015. It's not current.
Before he was president.
This was before he was president. And I looked it up, I hit, and I put the link in, and somebody said, well, this isn't a discussion on politics. But the person mentioned it, and it was inaccurate, because I think it was a Politico reference that I had. It could have been CNBC, that came in afterwards. And there was further discussion. It's kind of like you have certain media that's going to take something that he says out of context. That would happen here also. I could easily in my head see where somebody could take something that I had to say without the context of what I had, why I said it, so that it would clarify it. Or facetiously, I could say something, not mean it, but somebody said, well, you said it. And so we want to be cautious, again, about what people are saying, regardless of what side of the political arena you're in. Making sure that you understand the full context of something, and if it's debunked, then you know that, and you just don't keep bringing it up, because at the end of this particular political drama that we had, they were throwing anything and anything against the wall,
but
even if it
Evelyn,
was lies.
People who already have made up their minds politically are not interested in research. To them, research is seeking out those sources that already confirm what you believe. To them, that's not research. In order to do real research, you have to have an open mind, and you have to be willing to change your mind if new facts present themselves, okay? That's not research, just going to websites that already confirm what you think. That is not research,
Well,
okay?
I'm not saying that you do that.
No, I'm just clarifying that for the audience. I know you know that, and I know Bob knows it.
Well, I try to find the
but,
liberal media's support or non-support of something.
You have to look, but the thing that really is, and it doesn't surprise me because we've been through these cycles before. I've seen it a time. It's true also on the conservative side. They do the same damn thing. Folks, when you suffer a defeat, look in the mirror. That's the first thing to do. Don't blame everybody else first.
Hey, Sam?
Look in the mirror and say, what did I do wrong? Okay? Because if you don't do that, you're not going to learn, and you're going to make the same mistakes again, okay? Very simple.
So we only have like about 15 minutes before John gets here, unless he gets here early. Do you believe that if you have family members or friends, you don't invite them for Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas?
Invite them all. That's my theory.
I don't have a problem with it either.
Yeah.
However, you do have people that are saying, I'm not inviting
I saw that.
different family members because they didn't agree with my political
saw that,
position. I
yeah.
think that's very small of them.
Certainly it is.
And there's a lot of other things to talk about other than politics at a table.
I just want to put this out there, that Abraham Lincoln
Yep.
ran for president twice. That's not really people don't boast about that, but he didn't win the first time. So never quit quitting, that's an old saying.
No, Lincoln did win in
He won
1860.
I thought he won twice.
He had two terms.
Maybe he won, okay.
Yeah, he was elected he started in 61, and it was right before his inauguration. That's when Fort
See,
Sumter.
I should read the text
That's when
before I put
Fort
it out
Sumter
there.
was fired upon, yeah.
Right, well, that's what I thought.
That's what triggered that. I mean, because the South was bitterly opposed to Lincoln. And when he was elected, that's when the hostilities started.
Well, they
Okay.
also didn't want him to free the slaves. And
Well, he didn't free the slaves. That's incorrect. What Lincoln did was he issued a proclamation freeing the slaves in all the states that were then in rebellion. So in other words, he didn't free any slaves. What freed the slaves was the end of the Civil War. Kentucky was a slave state, but it was Union. He did not free the slaves in Kentucky, okay? It was a political document. So Lincoln did not free any slaves.
Well, at least he started the ball rolling.
Yes, he did, okay.
You know, and you always have to have somebody that sticks their
Right.
neck out to be
Well,
able
what
to do
happened to
that.
the Whig Party? The Democrats are still around, but the Whigs are gone.
The Whigs are gone.
And then they had the White Party, the nonpartisan. Independent?
How about the mugwumps? You got them in there?
I don't see them.
Look up mugwump. See what you find for mugwump. M-U-G-W-U-M-P, mugwump.
Okay, so we're looking all of this other stuff up.
Yeah.
Now, the next,
MUG what?
M-U-G-W-U-M-P, mugwump.
Okay.
You know, Sam and I are veterans, right? And I don't know what you did, Sam, over Veterans Weekend, but I went to the Riley School. They had
I'm babysitting.
a celebration, though. It was awesome. They have one every year.
Oh,
They call-
Republican activists.
Yep.
Mugwumps. Never heard of it.
You ever heard that? It's a wonderful term.
I'm sure I came across it, but I don't use it.
There've been so many splinter groups and parties.
I
But-
gotta shrink this up a little bit. so
To
it
John's
can fit.
point, we had two Whig presidents.
Well,
You want me to look 'em
mugwumps, while we have it on
Yeah.
the screen, were Republican political activists in the United States who were intensely opposed to political corruption. They were never formally organized. They were famously switched parties from the Republican Party by supporting Democrat candidate Grover Cleveland in 1884.
That's right.
They switched because they rejected a long history of corruption associated with Republican candidate James G. Blaine. Never heard of the guy.
He ran against Cleveland.
Well, he's going to go down the history with
Yep.
people who lost presidential races.
Yep.
So it goes on and on and on. But Mugwump, never heard of it, Sam, and they didn't really organize that well. And my memory of Mugwumps is they thought they were the elite of political people. They were above everybody.
Yeah,
That's my memory.
yeah, you're right. I think that's accurate. I think you're right.
So, what do you, we all have opinions. How does everybody feel about what the current proposed cabinet is that Trump has? So we can go down the
Moved up
list.
on one guy already got, a senator or a congressman quit his job for sexual harassment.
Oh, Getz?
I don't know what his name, it was all over the news this morning.
I have a theory on that one.
Well, so do I. So,
Well, he'll never get confirmed by the Senate. They will not confirm him.
well, there's a couple of things here. So, for Trump to have chosen the woman for his Secretary of State, is that it? No.
Susie Wiles.
Yes.
No, Chief of Staff.
Chief of Staff. Okay, so she gets things done. She's been involved in a long time. She knows the climate. She knows the territory.
And she's it's pretty clear to me that she's controlling him. How many bombastic tweets have you seen from Donald Trump since he's been elected?
But there's other pieces
won
but there's
everything
also
this time,
other
huh?
pieces here. So I think that when Trump got elected the first time, it could have been a surprise that he actually did. And he, as a business person and was not part of the swamp, may not have known how to navigate through the swamp.
Well, he didn't know anybody. That was the problem.
And he also allowed on others
Yeah.
in the Republican Party to give him a certain amount of advice, except they were into how the Republicans were in the past and not the way that Donald Trump took a look at whatever the party was that he thought it should become. And so he had that influence, plus you did not have people that obviously in the Senate and the House that were going to support anything that he did because they got rid of one of their candidates.
Again, he was not a member of the club.
I
We've
understand
we've
that part,
talked
but he
about
also
this.
I thought he was politically naive. And I also felt bad about the fact that no matter what happened, they were always trying to fight against them. And they're looking for ways to do it now, but we need to be a little bit more observant about that and open-minded as to exactly what's going on, because that can be the demise of the Democratic Party, because they're not listening to the people of the United States. I have an opinion about that, too. But as anybody listening, and you guys know, I have an opinion about just about everything. But you have that person, and then you have Tulsi Gabbard that they had, and you have Kristi Noem, and you have a few of the other ones. But the two so far that I thought were a little bit controversial was Pete Hegseth and Matt Gaetz. And we were shocked at Pete because usually you have some general or somebody like that. But they're also part of what the wokeness was that they had pushed during Biden's 4 years.
You know what Harry Truman said about generals?
Go ahead.
Tell us.
Harry Truman, 33rd President of the United States, said, "It's not against the law for generals to be dumb, because if it were, half to three-quarters of them would be in jail." Okay?
Yeah.
That was Truman. Now, Bob was in the Army, I was in the Army, we were both enlisted, but I think we understood the hierarchy and the chain of command. And my experience, and I spent time in Washington, my experience was that once you get at the full colonel level, anything past lieutenant colonel is political. You get to be a colonel, you get to be a general officer, that's pretty much political, all right? And I don't actually have a problem with Hegseth, because my personal criteria for that position, you have to be a veteran, you have to have served. And quite frankly, I believe that shouldn't be a requirement, but I'm more comfortable when the President of the United States is a veteran. I don't like the fact that our recent presidents are not military veterans, but that's just my personal preference,
And
okay?
mine would be
And
full bird colonel is it. After that, forget it.
well, the general officers
Yeah.
generally are very political. Once in a while, you'll get a real good one like a Colin Powell or a Norman Schwarzkopf, okay? But these guys are few and far between. Most of them are political animals. So I have no problem with Hegseth, okay? As far as Getz is concerned, I think he's a very poor choice. But I'm wondering if, and again, to Evelyn's point...
I think there's strategy. I
yes.
have my ideas.
I think so. I think you and I might be on the same wavelength here. I think he's a throwaway.
Okay, so,
I think he's a throwaway.
so what I
Now,
wondered...
So you take it from there.
Okay, so I wondered, and I
Yeah.
said this to Glenn, if I were Trump, Getz was the troublemaker in the House. So he does have background. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have background. I mean, obviously, he's not arbitrarily trying to get him out of there. But this is a scenario. He could have said to Getz, I'm going to make you this if you do this. And if you don't oppose Johnson for Speaker of the House, then I will give you this position. And if he doesn't get the position, Trump put him up. It's not up to Trump to get him in there. It's up to the Senate to get him in there. And so when you have these things, okay, then it's you're playing a chess game so that you can then win. You want a checkmate situation. So, and he may have wanted also to take more time to think about other people that's out there. But he's not making these decisions in a vacuum. He has people that are advising him, including his kids, the older ones. And he is listening a lot better to advice rather than having a chip on his shoulder like he did the first time around. So there's a lot of pros coming out of this. And so we'll have to just see what confirmation hearings there are. Do you have any opinions on who they've made as the Senate Majority Leader or any of those ones that they did?
All I've been looking at was Kennedy. I wanted to see what Trump continues
that
to
yet.
do.
Oh,
No, I know.
RFK?
I'm dying for that because I thought it was beautiful how Donald Trump went after Kennedy and just showed him a little love when his own family was just killing the guy. I thought that was terrible. The Kennedy family, to me, they're done, as far as I'm concerned, but not in this state. They'll always be popular.
Well, they never really, except for President Kennedy, they never really were that popular outside of Massachusetts. I mean, Ted Kennedy tried
Yeah, he
a
didn't
couple of
make it.
times, and he didn't make it. So, I mean, but in Massachusetts, of
Yeah.
course, extremely, I mean, you had Republicans voting for Ted Kennedy when he ran for Senate. So,
Sam, can you do these?
I totally agree with Mr. Chase with his comments about education. Thank you. Yes, and again, education is not limited to credentials and degrees, okay? I'll tell you, a little anecdote. Probably the smartest person I ever knew was a woman who had a sixth grade education. But she was a reader. She read everything, and she She could argue history and historical situations with college professors that had PhDs in histories, and she would come out on the positive end. I mean, again, I said it before, I'll say it again. Once you develop a good reading skill and a good reading habit, education at that point is up to you.
Well, yeah, that's
Okay.
also when I,
Audience,
up
did
to
Lincoln
you.
ever stay in Lowell? Yes, he
Yeah.
did. He stayed a weekend here in Lowell. We weekended in Lowell in 1848.
I did not know that. Why was he here? Do we know?
He was campaigning for Zachary Taylor.
Zachary Taylor.
that was a while back.
Now, he might have been, look up Taylor.
1848.
Look up Taylor. I think he was a Whig, John. I think he was one of the Whigs. There were two Whig presidents, and I think Taylor was one. Look it up and see if I'm right.
So before we run out of time, because we're coming up to the 7 o'clock mark, there was one thing that I wanted to make sure that, and it's very much off the topic of politics, although, yeah, I'm sure we could link it to it. There's an awful lot of hacking with...
You're saying this, Sam, he was a Whig.
Was he? Does it say Whig? Taylor?
Whig Party.
Oh, there you go. I think Millard Fillmore was the other one. Fillmore. See if he was, I think it was Taylor and Fillmore that were the Whigs. I
So
was-
can I make my statement before you answer
always
him
loved
back
that
again,
term,
please?
Whig.
So there's a lot of hacking that's going on with regard to computers, and they're getting in a variety of things. So my suggestion to people is to call up the 3 credit agencies and to freeze your credit reports, because if they can't access your credit, there's a multiple of things that they won't be able to do in order to cause you a lot of concern with regard to your finances. And then there's a lot of scams that are out there on the telephone, so be cautious about saying yes over the telephone, because that can be used against you in the future. So there's articles, if you want to be more aware of exactly what's going on. I think people are getting a little bit weary of how much is being violated with regard to personal information and identity. So we want to make sure that people are aware that there may be some issues with regard to your credit, and you don't want to be held responsible for anything. So I froze all of my ones because I'm not looking to open up any charge cards very soon. Now, if you're younger, it becomes a little bit more difficult because you might be negotiating refinancing your house and you have to unfreeze it. But everything is easily enough done online with regard to the 3 credit agencies. And there's a number of hoops that you will have to jump through if you want to be able to unfreeze something or get into your different accounts, which would be unique to you versus some hacker that may be aware of that. And so,
I want to make one correction before you go. There were 4 Whig presidents, not 2. So I'm leaving out William Henry Harrison, John Tyler, Zachary Taylor, and Millard Fillmore. Those were the 4 Whigs, okay? So I just love the word Whig. I think it's great.
and then the other thing when we were talking about education that I thought was of interest, there are a lot of individuals that are out there that have degrees and they have tremendous amount of debt and they can't get jobs. And so it's not all cracked up for whatever it is worth for everybody. I still find that that form of education for me was necessary in order to be able to do what I did. So we're coming up to the 7 o'clock mark, John. We're going to do
Coffee
a
break.
short break for transition. Are you ready to do a short break?
6:59:30.
Yep.
All right, I will get some.
Stay with. Welcome back to City Life. I'm Evelyn Thoren. I am your host for the next, well, let's say 59 minutes. And my co-hosts, Sam Chase and Bob Hoey, are here. John McDonough is behind the camera, our producer, and our guest this morning is John Moses. Thank you very much for coming in. He sits on the Chelmsford School Committee.
No relation to the guy in the Bible.
How do you know?
Well, you'd have to do that DNA analysis, and 23andMe seems to be going under quickly. And then there's all the articles about what happened to all the genetic data that they had. But
Yeah.
that wasn't one of the conversations we were going to have, unless you have information
I
you'd
have
like
no
to share.
insight.
No insight.
No insight. They have my DNA. I am on the list.
Okay,
So,
there you
yes,
go.
I have
Yes,
my-
and I did mine because I wanted to know a little bit more about it, and it was pretty much predictable.
Yeah. Well, what did you learn? Anybody learn anything that has done DNA?
Yes.
What was your most
That
interesting?
was surprising.
Yeah.
Well, when they do the map of your, like where you came from, I knew that Great Britain was part of it, but Great Britain wasn't always English when you go back. And Germany wasn't always Germany, because those boundaries have changed over the centuries. But I think the surprise was how much was in Scandinavia. And that wasn't anything that we ever had. So that went back. So when you see the colors on the map, there's nothing anywhere in terms of Southern Europe. Nothing in Africa.
You have no Italian in you at all.
No.
Okay.
And
all right.
there's nothing in South America, so I have no Spanish either, and no Italian, and no Russian, and no Chinese.
Sorry for your lack of luck.
Anyway, the surprise was the Scandinavia part, because that's where, with my husband, on a different side of his family, that's where he's from. He asked the question. And a lot of the stuff we talk about, you're bored with anyway.
Read the text.
Read the
And
text.
Thanks, Mr. McD. There's another reason your show is the best,
It's fair.
but the number one reason is Evelyn's homemade baked goodies.
It's true.
Well, you should do your baked goodie.
It's coming up shortly.
Okay, all right.
We had someone with the last name Moses working in Lowell at one time, City Hall.
Yes, who was
I think he
that?
was a money man. I'm not sure. I'm not
Yes,
sure.
yes, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I can't remember his
No
first name.
relation,
though.
huh?
No. My dad worked for the city hall for years. He was in maintenance down at Lowell City Hall for like 2 decades until he got injured when he back in the 90s. But yeah, no, so that's the only Moses, and he worked in the basement. So no money people.
Anytime a big general election comes up like this, John, the first thing I think of is school committee, because we have a hard time getting people to run for a seat.
Yeah.
And I was on it for 7 years on the school committee, and I still interview my favorite teachers, just to stay up with what's going on. And in Lowell, it's definitely, they think I'm right. In this show, we say it a lot, that we're sending, and basically Cliff and this guy talk a lot about it, is literacy, and I think it's the theme around every town right now, but Lowell is sending too many kids from the 3rd grade to the 4th grade that can't read. I think it's number one. And in Lowell, I'm pretty sure, I'm saying this because of the teachers that I love, discipline is number 2. Imagine that. I wouldn't think that would be the second issue in the schools.
In Chelmsford, I haven't heard too much about the discipline
In Lowell,
aspect,
I've
but I
had-
have heard that kids at the high school are disappointed with the fact that kids that don't know much are being moved along.
How much of a problem do you think it is to recruit school committee people that it's only a 2-year term? Do you think that's an issue?
Yeah, because it comes up quick, but like, we made $12,000 a year on the little school committee,
yeah,
which
you
is
guys are
like.
paid, right.
Yeah, after taxes, like $209. A nice little part-time job for a retiree,
John looks
especially.
interested, now that you said that.
So it's straight into a
I could
donation.
say who I think created that raise was Ed Kennedy, and that's why the city council's making the money they're making. It's around $25,000, I believe.
Well, isn't that a
But
percentage of what the
I think that
manager makes?
helps. There's no doubt it helps, because you go to 28 different schools in Lowell, right? And you've always up to buy something, tickets for this, and you're always trying to donate money to the schools anyway, so it's kind of helping you to be able to donate to the schools, you know?
Now, you want to throw a town gauntlet here. So it's interesting that they pay, I didn't know this in Lowell, that they pay the council members.
And the school committee.
And the school
School
committee,
committee.
right? So they pay the school board 12, and then the other people 25.
Yeah.
Did you ever point out that your budget is probably 4 times the size of the city budget, right?
Yeah, it was about half.
Yeah.
Anyways, 20, 50 million.
And schools are generally the largest employer in a city or a town, maybe not Lowell, but
Yeah,
like in
Lowell
Chelmsford.
is.
They have the most buildings. I would say, without a doubt, the school committee people in Lowell should have got 25 as
Well,
well.
they didn't ask for it.
That's crazy talk.
They
No,
didn't-
you're right.
No, that's a fact, because I
Yeah.
lived through this whole thing, and I asked school committee people, why didn't you guys just ask for the raise? Oh, we wanted to stay out of that. If you don't ask, you don't get.
That's fair. I didn't know that. See, this
Well,
is
the way-
Lowell politics.
You know, the way I looked at it, I was making $3,000 a year, so when they raised me to $12,000, I had no complaints.
So how was that decision made?
That was made through the city council.
City council,
Yeah.
okay.
And I'm pretty sure I could lay that one on Ed Kennedy. The election's over. He's the one that got us the raise. I think I'm right about that.
Well, we went
But-
through that whole exercise years ago in Chelmsford, because the school committee was never paid, but the select board was, and it was a nominal amount.
About $3,000.
Wasn't that. When I was on the board, because I was on the last board that got paid, so we got $1,500 a year.
Wow.
And if you were the chair, you got 2,000. And that was it.
Did you get insurance? Do you remember?
That's the
Well,
reason.
you had
They
you had the ability, yes, you had the ability, and
Because you were
again, this
getting
is
paid.
something that was totally misrepresented. People thought that if you did that, you got the insurance free. You had the ability to pay the same rate as a town employee.
Right.
Okay? You were able to buy into the town's insurance. But the town meeting eliminated all the stipends so that there would never be a possibility of any of the committee people being able to buy into the town's insurance. And it was one of the most misrepresented propositions at town meeting, and it was mean-spirited and vitriolic. It was so bad that 2 of the select board members, who didn't even get the insurance, said, I don't want to do this job anymore. If this is the way they feel about us,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this job
Yeah.
anymore. And I mean, I wasn't quite that extreme, but I'll admit that I kind of had that feeling too.
Yeah.
Why am I here? Why am I here? Because basically the town meeting people stood up and they basically looked us right in the eye and said, you people are worthless.
You know what, if-
And that's just the way it came across,
Yeah.
okay? It was one of the most despicable things I'd ever lived through politically.
Town
okay?
meetings, people don't realize like how contentious town meetings can really get.
Oh, yeah. It was
You have no idea what it was
And-
like in the
Oh, I can't.
early 90s.
When you guys did open meeting, they do that in Drake it, and I think that's insanity.
Well, they used to bring rocks to the meeting.
Yeah, you can't. That's crazy
What
talk.
rocks ours in Lowell is we have a mayor.
Yeah.
We have a mayor, so
Yeah.
that it adds, instead of 6 votes, you got 7 votes, and the mayor makes a big difference, because right now, I've never seen it better than right now. Right now, we seem to be going down the right direction with the mayor we have, Danny Rourke. And I worked with 4 different mayors. I didn't work with Danny, because I didn't
He's a
run
good
for that
guy.
election, but
He's a good guy.
so far, so good, because we have, you're pretty much right, we have to have almost 3,000 employees altogether in our
In the
system.
school system?
Yeah, close. You got at least 12, and I'm just guessing.
You gotta have more than that.
1,300 teachers,
what's our-
400 or 500 paraprofessionals, and the number goes on, 100
We don't have
custodians, you know.
3,000.
No, we don't have 3,000. We're over 2,000 though.
I think so,
Really?
yeah.
But the school is, from a budgetary standpoint, the school operation has the greatest dollar allocation. It's about 60% of the municipal budget, so.
When you
Yeah.
bring, excuse me, I'm sorry, because I love this guy when it comes to numbers.
Oh, I love it. Go for it.
Especially, you know what I'd love to say, John, and I don't know if it's the same, it must be in Chelmsford, but $255 million budget approximately, Lowell's, right?
Yep.
And when I hear this number, 87 cents out of every dollar, Sam, goes to pay for staff.
Yeah.
And I go, wow, we do all of this with 13 cents? It's unbelievable when you look at it that way. Because the job,
It's
the
a matter of
job,
perspective.
I like that.
even if
That's
you
good.
just call it a babysitting place, you got 15,000
13
students.
cents.
13 cents left over for the kids, that, to me, that number is mind-boggling.
Well, didn't Lowell do
Excuse me,
some
John,
kind of...
one of the most important parts of this.
Always got to
So,
show off.
What do we got, what's going on here today, Evelyn?
You have cranberry, a slight orange, and there's almonds in it.
That's like one of the
Thank
best
you.
ones she makes. I love,
I
that's
love
my
anything with
favorite.
cranberries in it.
Yeah, I
good.
like
Cranberries.
that.
And those are fresh.
Go ahead, my friend, sorry.
I forgot what we were talking about. I got interrupted by the cake and I lost it.
I don't blame you.
I was like, oh, a cake. We're chatting about teachers. What we were going
We
for.
were talking
13
about how much.
cents for everything
yeah.
else.
Oh,
13
yeah.
cents on the dollar.
So in our town, we're about 60%, but, there's a big but, and the town people never let us forget, the OPEB, like, so all their benefits actually comes out of the town. So they are a higher rate than we think they are in Chelmsford, but they are. But you'll hear me say often, we're 60%, because that number sounds much better than 70-something.
Well, yeah, it gives a bit of perspective. Now, the MASC had their conference this past weekend, correct? Did you
Yes.
go?
I did not go this year. This is the first year I haven't gone in a long time, actually. Yeah. They had a good conference, though. So just for people outside that don't know, there's a big conference for all the school committees where you can go in. There's education for school committee members and administrators, and some of the best things you get out of it are the networking
Yeah.
and meeting other school committee members and what they're doing in their towns. And that was last week, and Dr. Lang went and a bunch of other members. But
Where
I did
was
not
it?
make- They do it in
Hyannis.
Hyannis.
Oh, nice.
It's off-season, so it's
Yeah,
really,
nice.
there's not a lot of people. You can get access, but
They did try doing it in Worcester for quite a while because it was more centrally located, but people complained because they wanted to be able to golf and take extra days or whatever it was, so they moved them back.
Who pays the bill? In hiatus,
oh, it's reimbursed by the city, the town.
the town pays.
Town
Right,
pays.
Yeah,
but
it's a
you,
town conference,
but
yeah.
you pay for your lodging. I don't think I ever had them
No, they
pay.
reimburse for lodging. You have to go to a certain place. You have a rate. You have to follow the town rates. Same thing.
How about your transportation?
No, we pay for our own transportation.
Understood, thank
Yeah.
you.
Now, when I was on the board of
I'm
directors,
asking because when the Lowell City Council is going to Canada,
Yeah,
Canadians are paying for the whole deal.
but they're going to charge for the mileage.
I don't know about the
What?
details, it's not cost the city a ton.
So why are they going to Canada? What's the
They're
reason?
going up there, sorry, my mic was up, to study the homeless issue.
Okay,
Oh,
that's interesting.
okay.
They have
All
it
right.
well underhand over, and so they want to learn from those.
And what city are they going to?
I do not remember.
it should be somewhere in the,
Yeah,
what is it, the
Oh, you want me to come back to this?
Lowell, only to tell us where they're going.
Well,
That's all.
Montreal is the biggest city
So-
in Canada, so.
Yeah.
So I do want to point out, though, and I mean, even if the town is paying or the district, we do have a travel budget, right? For not just us, but for the superintendents
Right.
and like anybody that's going to professional development. There is a budget, a line item for the administrators, there's a line item for the school committee.
Right, school committee has a
Yeah,
line item, and
yeah,
and that's part of it. But also what comes out of there are the dues that you pay to the Mass Association of School
Oh, yeah,
Committees. And so when you do that, there's a fee for in many of the functions that they have. As a lifetime member, if I want to do anything, or if I had been on the committee, MASC picks that up. It doesn't come back to
So
Chelmsford.
you could, as a life member, you could go to these conferences?
Oh, I get all the information. I'm invited to everything.
Okay.
You have
And
to see
then,
her there, though.
Well, no, because I'm always watching
We should bring our baked
grandchildren.
goods, right?
You should be, I mean, honestly, if you have a choice between playing with grandchildren and going to the MASC conference, I would choose grandchildren every time.
There you
Well,
go.
currently,
Agreed.
currently, there's not that much of a choice, but every year I would like to go because there is a dinner for lifetime members, and I would like to do that. And every time that I think I might want to, and I'm thinking, there's always something that comes up with somebody that prevents me from going. But when I was on the board of directors, then the mileage to go to these different things was charged to the Mass Association of School Committees.
Now, are spouses included or not?
No.
Well, they can go,
Well,
if you
can
have
go.
to pay for them.
Yeah, like
Right,
you
but
would
they pay
them.
for themselves, right?
And then the
Okay.
dinners, if Glenn went, then I have to pay, well, I always paid extra for all the meals for him.
Yeah.
That does
Now,
not
didn't
come
you
out of.
get elected to the Hall of Fame?
Well,
I
it's.
like that one. I'm
it's-
pretty sure it's your
It's the
name.
lifetime achievement. It's
Yes.
not really, oh, yeah, and I did, and then there's the Chelmsford Hall of Fame. That was
Okay.
that one.
Don't you remember? We all had a table.
That's right.
Yes. I have a trophy like this
Yep.
big. I don't know what to do with it, but I have a trophy for that.
That's cool.
For all of all the work that I did for the school system. Yeah, that was cool. That was a surprise, a very much surprise. I'm not a graduate of Chelmsford High, but when you have the Lions Award or the Lucy Simonian Award, that isn't necessarily Chelmsford graduates.
Right.
So, I mean, you can have the fire department, you can have the police department, it depends. You know, there's different people.
Some teachers have gotten it that are not.
Yes. There's a whole
Chelmsford
list.
High graduates, right.
But when they do that now, they've scaled it way back. So it's only the people that are being inducted into the Hall of Fame that they have the dinner for. So we haven't been in a long time.
No.
We used to just go because.
I think the
well,
last
not
time
because
we
I
went was
a member.
when you got the honor. That was a few years ago.
Yeah, Bill was around.
Bill was here.
That was like.
Doc
in the 90s.
Weisfeld was
I'm glad I
alive.
looked
Remember he
this up
sat at that
because,
table? Right.
The Canadians aren't paying. The UEF, the Urban Economic Forum, is paying for them to go. $3,000. Almost $4,000. $3,948.
That seems right, yeah. That's interesting. So sometimes
Toronto,
Oracles will
okay.
sponsor things like that. That's probably a nonprofit.
Canada visited us not too long ago for that sport, you know, when you,
Curling?
curling, yeah.
Curling.
They came to Lowell.
That's my retirement job.
What,
When I get-
curling?
Yeah, I'm gonna learn how to curl.
I
Go to the
still haven't
Olympics.
figured that out yet.
Oh, I have. It's really cool. It's all physics. So you, besides being on the school committee, and we can always try, there's more education questions that we have,
We
but
talk
I
about
want
it,
to
yeah.
I want to mix it up a little here. You have now a legal nonprofit organization that
do.
you initiated. So talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, and I'll give a little background, the elevator pitch, so to say. So in 2021, when Afghanistan collapsed, I'm an Afghanistan veteran. So when Afghanistan collapsed, I received a phone call from my former interpreter, a man named Masood. And we ended up helping people come out of Afghanistan through the airport into the United States. It was a lot of crazy work. It was, if everyone remembers the fall of Afghanistan, it was a lot for Afghanistan veterans, and a lot of us jumped in. So over the next several years, I started seeing Afghans and other refugees kind of arriving in Massachusetts, and watching how they land. Sometimes they would land, they would have really good landing where they have volunteers and they have money and they have all the things they need. And then you'd have some Afghans that didn't know anybody in the U.S., but they came here because they earned their way here. And they're now in Massachusetts, and maybe they're not getting the best care. We also found that there wasn't a lot of events for the Southwest Asian community. So you think Iran and Afghanistan and all those stands. There's actually a lot of Southwest Asian culture. It's not really Arab culture. So we're holding programs to educate the community, to allow people to come in to learn more about them. And if you can see there, this week, actually, last 2 weeks, we actually finally, after a year of work, actually 2 years of work, a whole fellowship at Stanford, and a whole lot of work, we ended up getting our 501c3 deductible designation like a week and a half ago. And if anybody was interested in donating to a veteran, an Afghanistan veteran that supports Afghans and other refugees in Lowell, Greater Lowell area, you can scan that QR code right there, and we can take donations and provide a receipt, because we're official now, and we've been receiving pretty steady donations since we finally got the doors open. I'm
great.
really proud of the people that we work with. In the middle there is Farishta Shams. She came from Afghanistan and emigrated in 2019. And she got her citizenship about a month and a half ago, and I was able to be there for that. It was wonderful. On the right, there's another Lowell resident there. Lowell, born and raised Lowell, Jason Chandonnet on the right. That's my cousin. He grew up in Lowell with me as well.
So it appears she got her citizenship relatively quickly.
5 years. Yeah.
Compared to what many people.
So on that particular path, so this wasn't true in Iraq too. They have something that they use in the U.S. called the special immigrant visa. So these are people that provided service to the United States. So in Iraq, maybe you were an interpreter, maybe you did work for the government. In Afghanistan, I worked at the embassy, and there were hundreds of Afghans working on the embassy, trying to make their country better by working with the United States. And so I forget where I was going there, but
We're talking about kind of the fast track or preference for the
And so for-
citizenship, right?
Yeah, so for SIVs too, they actually go through a really significant, very, very significant background check. They go through actually a background check that is more difficult than secret clearance for the U.S. government,
Oh,
right?
okay.
They're really stringent. And they are technically protected by law. We are preparing for SIVs to slow down. But so she came in, she did the work. She's back in school too, at top of running this with me. And yeah, she got her Afghan woman specifically absolutely understand why they came here. And they get the mission. And Farishta came here, she went to school, she got work, she worked harder, she got her husband working. And then since then, she's just continued to do the things she wants to do. And I'm super proud of her and glad that she's part of our team, for sure. Afghan women are just unbelievable. They're some of the toughest people I've ever met.
I love naturalized citizens.
Yeah.
Because most of them are extremely happy to
Yeah.
be here and are grateful.
Yeah.
And so that's a nice dynamic to have in your country, I think.
Well, if you speak to her too, right? She's a person that you're like, what was Afghanistan like for you? And she's like, when I was a kid, she wore the blue burqa, the full body burqa. And she said actually it was nice because people didn't, like, the Taliban wouldn't bug you as much if they couldn't see you. And so she said that she hated it, but like at least it kept people safe. They felt safe with them.
Any significance to the color blue?
I don't know. I think that's maybe cultural.
Okay.
I don't know.
Now that you can have fundraisers, right? The only reason why I'm asking this is yesterday I went to the Wish Project there in
Yep.
North Chelmsford and
Oh, I'm gonna hit them
dropped
up.
off some clothes, yeah. And then 2 weeks ago, I went to the bridge. I don't know if you ever heard of that in Lowell. It's a place where you go there for any reason, gambling, drinking, whatever issue you have, you can go to the bridge. But I bought them 12 pairs of pants that I went from a 38, I'm down to almost a 34.
They look great.
Not really. I think it's because of diabetes, but
All right,
I'll
well,
take it. I'll take it. I'll take it. I look great, yeah. But thanks, Dr. Patel, for my new teeth. That's what's making me look good. But my point is, can you take clothing donations too, and not just cash?
That was my next question is, if somebody has, because you mentioned it before, but I didn't know what to do with it. You said that the children wanted books.
Yep, books.
And
Books are
I'm
good.
sure that, when it comes up to winter, there's coats, and there are resources for them to do that, but if somebody wanted to just donate those types of things, can they go through you? I don't think you have the accommodations yet to
They
accept
don't have-
all of
yeah,
that.
they don't have for clothes yet.
Right, but as far as like, say, books,
Yep.
maybe if you don't, you could have a list
Yeah.
of what was needed. So Wish has events coming up where you can actually sign up and give stuff, like for gifts for Christmas type of thing, just like you have a toy drive
Yep.
that's out there. Sometimes the Marines do it, other people will do toy drives, they want new toys, not used toys necessarily, but are you doing things along those lines, or do we just go to Wish and say, we want these to go to you?
If they have clothes, I would say give them clothes. For us, so just let's talk about the mission now. I think you guys were talking about the election earlier, so we're the people that are doing the work are preparing for kind of what's next, right? So we do know based on, the last administration, and this isn't really political, right? He's kind of stated that he wants to lower the immigration numbers. My first thing when I first started the work was I was going to welcome Afghans as they were incoming. And we know a bunch of stuff, right? There's already a bunch out there. And so what we're planning for is how to give better local support to these volunteers. So really what we need for the most part is cash, right? It's always, I know it's really hard to say to people, but really, we really need your help. And the money would be specifically used for things like food shopping, diapers, Like anything that you have when you move into a house, there's a list that a refugee needs. And it almost always comes from either from donations or from pretty broken stuff. So sometimes they don't get the highest, which is fine, right? But I think at the end of the day, the families that do arrive in Massachusetts want a better support structure, and the way resettlement agencies are going to work going into the next administration, we don't know. So refugee families in Massachusetts are here, and they're here legally, and they're going to be here, so they're going to need continued support. So we are Massachusetts Afghan Alliance, and we are going to focus on helping everybody in Massachusetts, but our core fundraising and like how do we get out into the communities is going to be here. It's going to be in Greater Lowell.
A lot of those Afghans that you're serving, were they people that helped us in that
Yeah.
side of the war?
It depends. So the thing is there were more than just interpreters in Afghanistan. There were interpreters, there were office workers, there were people that signed up because they thought they were in a free country, right? They thought, I'll join an NGO. Like some of the Afghanistan started forming NGOs, like non-government organizations, like what Mass Afghans doing to help their people. And when the Taliban came up, that was all ripped up. But those people, those NGOs, some of those people that worked at the NGOs that were helping the U.S. government, they're eligible too.
What's an NGO?
Non-government organization. So NGOs, when you go overseas, you'll find like CIA is definitely government. That's
When you say government, you mean American government or Afghan government?
So it depends on where country you're in, but so my NGO is in Mass, but back then, Afghans were actually starting to form NGOs in their own country. NGOs are a good check on power. And so as soon as somebody comes to power, if they start messing with these non-governmental organizations. But, so those people helped the U.S. A lot of those people helped go out with
So
Afghanistan.
would you consider a religion an NGA?
NGO,
Religion, no.
Thank you for the correction, Evelyn, but I think you know what I meant.
yes.
What's that? I don't know what that means.
So,
NGO.
in terms of religion, what do you mean by religion, John?
Well, the Jewish faith, the Buddhist faith, the
Any
Catholic
I
faith.
think that
I'm asking
I
our
think
guest. You say NGO, non-government agency, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Would you consider a church one of those? So yes or no? Small issue. Thanks.
Do I think the church is separate from the government? Yes.
Understood.
Yeah. I mean, I think they are. This church is separate from the state.
usually,
Not
but as
usually.
far as
Well, not in Afghanistan, it
In
wasn't.
in this country, it is.
In Afghanistan, it was an Islamic republic.
Right.
So the national.
It wouldn't be.
The national religion was.
and in Iran, the religion runs the country.
Yeah.
But I think that when you talk about non-government agencies or organizations,
Yeah.
It might have something to do with food, it might have something to do with
We're really Johnny on the spot
training
to solve.
programs.
Do they start generally as volunteer groups, the NGOs?
Yeah. So I mean, I was kind of pressed into this, right? This kind of happened, and it kind of changed it pivoted my life. But at the end of it, like I said, I think it was the right move at the right time. I think it's just a lot of hard work to get to an NGO, so a lot of people do start as volunteers. A lot of volunteers don't last because refugee work is pretty difficult. Especially one specific type of case I do want to talk about is, and there's a lot of these actually, more than you think locally. We have Afghan families that were separated during the airport, right? So where we have maybe a dad and a son here, we have several families like this in Chelmsford where we have, half the family here, and then 3 years after the evacuation of Afghanistan, their families are still in Afghanistan and in increasing danger. And that's something that Mass Afghan is trying to really, to help with, right? The U.S. government separated a bunch of people and now they're responsible for it. So we're trying to get them back together, but that trauma has been pretty significant and it spreads beyond just the volunteer community, right? It spreads into the school. We have high school kids, Afghan high school kids, that their families are still in Afghanistan, and these kids cry. I mean, these are like
Of course they do.
They do, and they miss their mom, and their sisters get sick, and all the things that happen in life. And I know about 14 of those different families like that in Massachusetts that we're working with the State Department to try to get out.
I thank John all the time for the show that he puts on here, because last time you were here, I'm pretty sure I told you to try to get in touch with a young Jew child from the Coalition A Better Acre.
Yeah, that's on my list.
But coming up, I believe it's on the 23rd, don't hold it, on this show, you'll have a guy that bought 3 houses so far. He started off
Yeah.
with one house, Project Compass is the name. My sister's the one that runs it for him. But he's bought his third house, I think, down here on Appleton Street.
Yeah.
And it's for 18 to 24-year-old females
Yep.
and children that have nowhere to go.
That's a great project. A lot of people know about that. It's a good project.
Yeah, but I think what you're doing, I mean, now that you can raise money, if you
Yeah.
get in touch with all those nonprofits and Project Compass and
Is that David
CTI.
Aldrich?
Pardon me? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The 26th he's coming.
The 26th, we're going to have
Oh, good.
the main man there, Dave Aldrich. But what I'm trying to tell you is where you're new, you reach out to all those nonprofits, you
Absolutely.
know? And the reason why I put Coalition A Better Acre first is because most people, when you think of nonprofits, they think they don't pay taxes. Well, they paid quite a bit of taxes. You know, not that you're going to be able to do the same thing she did, because most of hers was low-income housing for veterans and stuff
Yep.
like that, but I appreciate what you do, and I think it's a good way to, where you're so new, touch all those places, and they could give you their ideas, and they're helpful. All of them are.
You know, it's interesting because I'm not really a phone person, and then like ever since I started this a couple years ago, I'm on the phone all the time. with
Okay.
People like, hey, let me tell you about Mass Afghan and what we do. I went to an election event before the election, and the whole time I know I was there for a political party, but I was advocating for Mass Afghan the whole time. Like, hey, do you have any money?
You're lobbying for
Yeah,
it.
you're lobbying for money. It's fun.
Yeah.
But just really quick, I'll give you kind of our 12-month calendar. So for the next 3 months, we're working to build a support base for whatever happens on January 21st, right? So we know there will be changes and there's always disruption, so we're prepping for that. We're prepping for the remainder of the incoming refugees that are coming in. And then in 2025, we're really going to start focusing on community education. We have 4 events planned next year. We'll get dates out, but we're planning 2 Eid events. So Eid is kind of like a big holiday for the Muslim faith. They're going to do a Nowruz, which is New Year's, and we're going to host a woman-only event. So we're going to do a woman empowerment type event. Frisch is going to run all these. And then also next year, we're going to start running up for a long-term project. We actually want to eventually own space where we can actually do a little bit more, we can hire people, but that's a little more in the future. But next year is going to be a lot of community education and a lot of finding volunteers to go out and provide support, with Mass Afghan being the support structure for the volunteers as opposed to understaffed and under, other people that don't have
Right, but I think it
space.
needs to be emphasized that what you're doing is you're going through legal channels.
Yeah.
You actually have people, if you take a look at what the conditions are of their country when they apply for asylum, on the basis of what their political situation is, or, like I said, they're legitimate reasons why you're doing this, and you're vetting them, and they're coming over, and
Yeah.
it's not like they're arbitrarily showing up at your doorstep
Like
and you
good.
have no clue.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit different to deal with it like this than it is with the chaos that is happening at both the northern and the southern borders, and then flying people in and all the other stuff. It's a different situation. And so when people are listening to what you're saying, it needs to be emphasized that you're going through this on a legal basis. It's not arbitrary. It's very clearly defined. You have, support, and if you're a 501c3, then you had to go through the channels in order to become, to get legal status, to get money, and you're going to be
Yeah.
filing taxes. There's all of the things, and that's the rule of law, and that's what you're following. Whereas there's an awful lot of other things that are occurring in this country that aren't, and that's going to be addressed, we hope, at some point.
Let me ask John, so you talked about high school students, Afghans, and then you had also talked about family separation. So these students that are in the high school, what are their typical living arrangements if they're separated from their families?
Yeah, so one family it's a 2-bedroom apartment. One family has a 2-bedroom apartment. They actually have a bedroom waiting for the rest of their family, and that's one of the families I've been fighting
Okay.
for. The other family, actually, they moved in with the other family. So it was a little bit less expensive for 2 families to live together. So we have a pair of fathers living with their sons in an apartment.
Okay, all right.
And then we also had one family that was reunited as a young man, also in high school, but his family got here about a year ago. And so one thing the government does a good job on is getting unaccompanied minors back together. Like as a country, we gotta have an obligation for this. So that kid, he got he's a great young man. He's 19 years old. He's done all the things he's supposed to. He has a car. He's got a full-time job while he goes to school. But he got him and his numerous sisters, his mom and his dad, and they actually, Joe Reddy rented him an apartment, which was really, Joe Reddy had an apartment open up, and I was like, bro, I need your help, and he was like, absolutely, and they've been living with Joe ever since, on the top floor of the Yellow
John, I
House.
got two questions for you. How cooperative is ICE with your group?
We don't, so where we are on the pipeline, I wouldn't really, so ICE is more like front end, right? Like, or maybe enforcement, so I don't deal with it.
Dealing with any agency that can kick you out of the country.
Yeah, I haven't run into any, they don't have questions for me, which is probably good.
Okay, and page 2, these folks that are from Afghanistan, are they concerned about Trump kicking them out of the country?
I think there were concerns, not so much about, people have made that, so there's a lot of people like me that do this work. There are thousands of people that do work with Afghans. I think I'm not as much afraid, and this is kind of the general scenario, I don't think they're going to go after Afghans. I don't think that. I am concerned, based again off the last administration, with the types of Afghans they let in, right? So those SIVs I talked about earlier?
Just back up 1 second.
Yeah.
The individuals from Afghan,
Yeah, they don't
are
see.
they nervous about it?
Oh, yeah, in sense of like it's an election change. They've never been through an American election. I don't think they know what to expect. Especially the reunification cases, because like we know what President Biden's administration is doing for those cases, right? And again, when an administration changes, there's a lot of and then we're going to get some time while we wait to refigure things out. So yeah, they're definitely they're nervous. Maybe not for the reason like somebody in the U.S.
If they get kicked back to Afghan, would they be executed right away, or would there be a little?
I admit, it depends, but if you were like an interpreter, you're done. If you worked for the the Afghan government, people actually have managed to go back to Afghanistan and get out again. But certain people certainly would die. Absolutely.
Understood.
Those are very brave people who did that.
Yeah, they go in, dude, there's Americans that still go to Afghanistan
Yeah.
sometimes. There's Americans that go in and they go take care of other, the Afghans in Afghanistan.
God love them.
Yeah.
Your
it's-
colleague on the school committee, Maria Santos, she must be really busy.
Her and I work
She's
together a lot.
busy.
That's good. I'm glad to
Yeah.
hear that.
Yeah, we work
Yeah.
together. She helps me with legal stuff. She's
Yeah.
helped me with pro bono cases for some of those families, which I don't think she knew she was signing up for, because they showed up and was like, I need your help. And she's like, how hard could this be? And then I was like, welcome to this family of 8. And I don't think people realize how much money and like time, and I almost felt bad after. But now, Maria Santos and I, even before we were close on the school committee,
Good.
but now like we're working together, we're talking about if there were something where like somebody, like an Afghan was potentially going to be deported, well, we have somebody like me, we have a couple other lawyers that can make sure that this is going the right way, like we have legal observers now. This is some of the stuff we're really talking about. for
Right, but you're
25.
trying to do this in a legal manner.
Yeah.
It's not as if you've
No.
got this group of 8 family members that came across the Mexican border or the Canadian border,
No.
and they showed up at your doorstep, and you're like, where did you come from? You're actually trying to pursue it in a very specific process. It's not arbitrary. And so I think that is where there is a difference. And when, people are concerned in terms of the Afghans, am I going to get deported and all this other stuff? You're working to try to have them here the correct way, and you've got people that are becoming citizens that are naturalized. It's going through the current process. I think it needs to be somewhat
It's also,
streamlined.
yeah,
But I think that the fear factor is always going to be there. I mean, there's a fear factor for American citizens as to what's going to happen with different
Yeah.
things that go on in the country, whether you have one president or another one. It just depends on your perspective of it. But as far as what you're doing, again, and I can't overemphasize it enough, is that you're trying to go through a process, it's legal, and they have true reasons to be here. Whereas a lot of the people that came across the border, if they said, why are you here, they can say whatever they want, but many of them are here for economic reasons, it's not for political reasons. So and again, it's a fine line in terms of definition, which we
well,
don't
the
need to go down
government,
that path.
regardless of what you think of the immigration policy or lack thereof, because really it's been a mess for 60 years, there's always been a recognition of the country of origin of people. So if you look at Afghanistan, there isn't really too much question as to why people want to leave Afghanistan.
Right,
Okay?
right.
So that's always, regardless of what stage the immigration system has been in, there's always been that consideration.
Yeah.
So people who are coming from countries where there is constant political turmoil, or it is clear it's a despotic regime and
Yeah.
people are getting executed, those people are always going to be looked at more favorably than people coming from, say, England or France,
Yeah.
okay?
And imagine,
So,
like,
right.
especially for, like, Afghans, one of the things I think that was shocking for us is that we were there for over 20 years, right? And I was
Yes.
there for a year. I had friends ago. They were literally father-son pairs that went to
But
Afghanistan.
we ran out of the country.
Huh?
We ran away from the country.
Who ran away from the country?
United
The United
States.
States.
Oh, well, yeah. So, whatever, I mean, but 23 years, right? So you have women and girls and boys that went to school and learned and met Americans and were like, we're going to be free forever. And then all of a sudden,
Bang, the
just
curtain
bang,
comes
the
down.
curtain comes
Right,
down, right?
right.
And it didn't just come down on Afghans, it came down on veterans. There was a lot of veteran
sure.
suicide issues. There was a lot of, it wasn't great for me either. I mean, like, I never, I wasn't around for Vietnam, but I've seen that famous scene where the helicopter taking them off the roof. And halfway through, like, Afghan evac, I realized that's what we were doing. We were like the exit mode for the
Right.
country. And it was the government doing work, NGOs doing work like we talked about, and then private volunteers that helped. But yeah, we imagine living in that and having all the stability, and all of a sudden, at this point now, 3 years out, women are not allowed to talk outside. They are not allowed to speak out loud in the public anymore.
We're going to go to announcements, everyone's favorite part of the show
Oh,
now.
yeah, here we go.
I love how she rolls her eyes. Okay, so if you want an announcement on the show, real easy thing to do is just send me a text, send me an email. Best thing is just call me, and we'll work something out. Closing this window. So if you are hungry today and you are over 60, we don't care if you live in Timbuktu, we don't care. The Lowell Senior Centers will have lunch for you today. At around 10:30, head over there. And today is the 14th of November. So that means they're going to have, actually yesterday was stuffed cabbage. I missed a good one yesterday. But today they're going to have chicken with rice and veggies. It's $2, $2.50 tops. You walk in the front door. Nice gal by the door. Her name's Tara. Give her your $2. If you don't have the $2, we'll give you a ticket for free. Tomorrow, lasagna. Ooh, looks good tomorrow. But that's the whole month. And the senior center is on the corner of Broadway and Fletcher Street. Happy to see you. Just going to be over 60 years and older. Moving right along to the next. Tomorrow's City Life. Tomorrow's City Life. Cliff Krieger's the host. Eileen Del Rossi's going to be here. John Curtis and Greg Pappas. That's tomorrow's City Life. Laughs for Love. This is happening out to Lindsay's this weekend, November 16th. And doors open at 7 out to Lindsay's. And good group of people. They help a lot of people. The mustard seed community, and good stuff. So if you find it in your heart to make it out there, that'd be great. There's a QR code. Just go over with your phone, take a picture of that. It'll bring you to a website you can donate. And this is Paul Belay and his friends featuring the fundraisers they'll be playing there. So be a good time this Saturday night. Legends of Boston. This is happening Sunday, the 17th, out to the boat in delightful Dracut. And they're going to have a bunch of bands out there. Paul Belay was here yesterday telling us about this, and it tributes to Aerosmith, Boston, Jay Giles Band, The Cars, Godsmack, and Extreme. And it's a fundraiser for the Salvation Army. They also have a QR code. You want to take a walk over to your TV set. I'll see if I can pump this up a little bit. And take your phone, put it in camera mode, and look at this. And you can get tickets to this for this Sunday. Moving right along, a food drive. Lowell Police is doing this. And next time you go to Market Basket, consider Hannaford, whatever, Frank and Ernie's, wherever you go, and pick up some peanut butter and jelly. Bring it down to the Lowell Police Station, healthy snacks, juice boxes, whatever you can think of, but that's the list they want on the bottom of the screen. Bring it down to the Lowell Police Station, and out in the corridor, they have a nice collection point for that. This guy, Father Conway, and he is, no, it's Father Clancy, sorry. Conway stuck in my head. Father Clancy, he's the pastor over at St. Rita's Church. He's going to have a procession around the city, the Feast of Christ the King, on November 24th at 11 a.m. And we'll talk about this a little bit more next week. But God bless this guy. He's a pretty courageous guy to walk around the city with a procession for Christ. Out in Champing Chester at St. Ferdinand's Book Club. Parishioners and friends of St. Vartanantz are welcome to join the church's book club. You can enjoy the warm fellowship and engage with lively discussion over a monthly book selection. If you want more information, there's a gal by the name of Isabel Hamill. That's her email address. They'd be happy to engage with you about that. Evelyn promised to read this.
There was another one of those. There was two pictures. It's the first picture.
You want this one?
Yes, first.
Okay, so
We don't have to have the other one necessarily. So Sunday, December 1st, there will be an annual holiday prelude in the center of Chelmsford. There's a lot of different events that's going on. It's on the Common, and you can see the time frame. 4 o'clock, Santa arrives.
The trees in the old city hall.
I don't know.
Yes.
I went to this one time.
Yes, the old
So
City
that's-
Hall, which is
The
now the
old town hall,
Chelmsford
sorry.
Center for the
Yeah,
arts.
the old town,
Right, the
old town hall.
Right.
So you want to take a look online. There's a lot of information that is there. The second page that I sent you, John, is very difficult to read, obviously, but if you get it enough so that I can read it, you've got, there's...
Way too much to read here, kiddo.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of events that's out there that's all around the Common in
But
the center of
I think the main point
Chelmsford.
is to get out to Chelmsford Center.
Yep, on Sunday, December 1st.
Now, if I'm living in Tewksbury, what would be the GPS address I would put into my phone if I wanted to go see Santa arriving at 4 o'clock?
I don't know, I'd have to look up what the Chelmsford Center of the Arts are. and
Yeah,
I'll
that
give
would
you
be,
that.
I think that would be the point.
Okay,
let me look
Chelmsford
that up.
Center of the Arts. Look that up, and that's where you want to be
Yeah.
on Sunday, December 1st. Thank you, Evelyn.
Coming up shortly.
Creative Gifts, this is coming up 307 Market Street. And Nancy Dunn, who's the sponsor, the Art League of Lowell, All Arts League of Lowell, is having a reception December 14th, 3 to 5 p.m. And November 8th through January 15th, they're going to have these all on display. And again, the address is 307 Market Street. Be there or be square. The shop, the LRTA, will scoot you to the mall for free. Zippity-doo, you don't pay no more. It's free. So the LRTA bus, it leaves the Kennedy Center. All the times are down the bottom here, so you take a walk with your fancy phone over the TV set, take a picture of this screen, and hop on the bus. It's going to bring you to the Pheasant Lane Mall, and those are the ins and out times. I don't know anything about the Burlington Mall. I was asked about that. I don't know anything about that, but the LRTA will scoot you to the Pheasant Lane Mall, sales tax free. And that's coming up on the dates that are all listed there. So moving right along. Also, starting December 1st, you don't have to pay for the bus anymore. LRTA, it's free buses through September 30th of 2025. We'll keep talking about this to encourage people. That's my last announcement, Ev. Happy camper you are. Back to you.
Yeah, the address is 1A North Road. That's what's on,
When you want to see Santa, 1A North Road.
yep,
4
1A North
o'clock.
Road if you're in a different community. It's the same center of town if you wanted to do the 4th of July events that we have also. So, anyway, so we're...
Evelyn, just one thing I could say to John, you mentioned Vietnam, and I could speak a little bit about what happened in Lowell. We picked up, I think, the second largest population of Southeast Asians.
Yeah.
It might be the best thing that ever happened to the city of Lowell. It's great for my neighborhood, that's for sure. My houses are worth more. They'll pay cash for my house. It's unbelievable how much
Yeah.
goodness they brought to the city of Lowell, and I hope the same thing happens for the Afghans.
Just real quick, do you know, is it Ken Burns, the guy that does all the documentaries? Ken
Yes,
Burns? Yeah,
yes.
so Ken Burns did the Vietnam documentary. It was really excellent, right?
Yes.
It was probably, I forget how many episodes. But one of the things, at the very last episode, they talk about the Vietnamese people that came to the United States after Vietnam. And this is true. The Vietnamese people came one of the most politically active communities in the entire U.S., and they were really heavily Republican. It was-
And very productive
and
people.
productive, yeah. They came, and again, this is the conversation we have about refugees, right? A lot of the people that came out of Vietnam were refugees, and they came here and they figured out pretty quickly that they had it better, and then did more. So, yeah, I didn't have a lot in common, honestly, with Vietnam veterans. A different generation, and then all of a sudden we had this really straightforward connection, right? This really like, hey, these are two historical things, and now we're together. And I mean, just the way it collapsed on both ends was really
I
tough.
think Evelyn's turn to read this one.
Unfortunately, Afghanistan was just another place in a long list of places where the American mafia teams up with the military-industrial complex to test out their new toys and blow up the old ones. I don't agree with that.
Well, there's one point of view.
I was certainly a member of the military-industrial complex.
Yes, you were.
I was just a little. Me and Sam were just tiny little pieces of that complex. I don't know about that. I know that I was in the Army for 23 years. It was the best stuff I ever did. I made my best friends I ever made. I discovered the Afghan people, and it changed. And the Army changed my life. Paid for my degree.
Well, just
yeah.
most recently, the United States wanted to get rid of our Bradleys, so they gave them all to the Afghans. They put them on a train, put them on boats. They
was
went to
Ukraine.
No, they went to Ukraine. Excuse
Ukraine.
me. Went to
Yeah.
Ukraine, and that's the most recent example. And these.
Did you send that text to yourself? I'm just. Let's go ahead.
No. Back to you guys. Never mind.
Well, just for the commenter's benefit, the commenter may already know this, but I'm going to say it anyway. The term military-industrial complex was coined by a Republican president, Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Yeah.
And there isn't probably anybody at the time more qualified to speak on that subject than five-star general and President Eisenhower.
So when you were talking about, because we still have a little bit of time for me to go off on this tangent, so when that person was commenting about testing out stuff and whatever, in the Vietnam War, the military doctors learned a lot of,
The what war?
in the Vietnam War,
Vietnam. Okay, I didn't hear it first time.
the doctors, the military doctors and nurses learned a lot in terms of when the wounds that there were there, and the trauma to the body, and they learned all kinds of new techniques, not because they wanted to, but they had to be simply because of time and quantity of people they had to deal with. And so there was an awful lot of stuff that they learned how to do more efficiently with regard to surgeries there. And so everybody can look up that, it's documented. And that helped everybody else. And it wasn't because they wanted to when they were trying out new stuff, they had to do it. And then that information then was then documented. And now that influences some other surgical techniques. When you have the military equipment, my husband, quite a while ago, when all this started, you had parents of some of the soldiers that died from the, what did they call them, IUDs?
IEDs.
I got it. I'll get it. I'll get it. You got to have some kind of humor somewhere along the line, don't you? Or at least I asked. So you had.
Well, I suppose there are.
I think people would rather get hit with an IUD than an IED. honestly.
But I think there may actually be people who've died because of IUDs.
Well, yeah, I'm sure of that, too. But I was looking at the U as unidentified rather than something else. So there were different things that was brought to his attention, and they were working on trying to develop the technology that would detect them well in advance, so that you wouldn't have the same experience time after time after time.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there may be a need for a particular weapon or detection device or whatever in the course of war that can be used later on. So there are, I will call them laboratories.
War is a laboratory.
Yeah, for
There's
many
observers.
reasons.
There's got to be observers in Ukraine. There's got to be all kinds of people in Ukraine watching what the Russians get stomped by the Ukrainians. I love Ukrainians. I went to Poland last year to talk. I met a bunch of high-level government officials.
Tough people.
And Poland doesn't want Ukraine to lose. Like, Poland went through some stuff with Russia. They went through the Iron Curtain period. They went through all that. And I think there's a greater support. Well, we'll see what happens in the upcoming year. To your point, though, they do send Bradleys to Ukraine, a lot of them, actually. And that it's kind of a positive because, first of all, that's equipment we aren't either going to use, right? And we get the knowledge of what it actually can do in the battlefield. And by the way, Bradleys absolutely smoke Russian equipment, and it was what we'd always thought. And it kind of makes me feel confident that we could smoke Russia in a war.
in a conventional war.
Conventional war.
Right, well, as far as Ukraine goes, my opinion is that they were trying to run it the way they did the Vietnam War, and that didn't go well. Once you allow somebody to fight a war the way it should have been fought, it can end up being a lot shorter, a lot less life lost. But when you get involved with the politics, and then you've got different reporters that are embedded, depending upon who they are, that caused an awful lot of problems in Vietnam. And they were trying to do that with Israel, with the war that was there, is to dictate, well, we're not going to send you this. Talk about different things that politically we don't want to talk about. You have a president that basically says, well, this is what I want you to do, because if you don't do this, I'm not sending you this equipment or this money. And so, there's a lot of strings attached sometimes to what it is that's
But
going on.
Evelyn, all wars are politically based, number one, and if you really want to understand the politics, you study World War II, and you see how much the politics influenced the way that war was conducted. And when I was growing up as a kid, the first president that really I related to was Eisenhower. And you know how it is. It doesn't matter who the president is. If he's in office, he gets criticized unmercifully. It's just the way it is, okay? And so I grew up thinking that Dwight Eisenhower wasn't the smartest guy in the world, because this is what I heard growing up, all right? They used to call him Old Bubblehead, all right? Well, if you go back and you study the history and you study the politics of how World War II was conducted from the U.S. point of view, Eisenhower was a genius. He was a political genius. The way he managed all of the prima donna personalities like Montgomery, and Patton, people who thought they were God, and de Gaulle, there's another one for you, okay? And it could have had a different outcome because of the personalities that were involved. And that's the case in World War II is probably the best example of that, because it was just, all-consuming. But even these smaller conflicts, it's the same thing. It's politics.
Sam, read this one.
It's politics, yes. Let's see. Unfortunately, we have an ocean filled with military scrap. I'm pretty sure bombs are not good for the environment.
And John,
That's
before you-
probably true.
John, before you skedaddle, would you tell the community about this one more time, please?
Yeah, if anybody was interested to support a local veteran that supports Afghan refugees, my name is John Moses from Mass Afghan Alliance. You can either scan that code on the bottom or www.massafghanalliance.org/donate. And thank you very much. The money will be well used to support families directly.
John, I only had 3 years in the Army. You had 23, I think you said?
23.
Well, in my lifetime, I met two people that I'm very proud to say every time. Omar Bradley had over 60 years active duty. I met him in Colorado.
met Bradley?
I sure did. I had a drive for his entourage or whatever. I was a driver.
I would have loved to have
And
met
I
him.
met Mother Teresa at Concord Prison, a place that you're very familiar with, Mother Teresa.
I was not an inmate. I just want to get that out
There was
there.
over 1,000 inmates, and she shook everybody's hand. She blessed all of us. It was amazing.
What year was that? Do you
But
remember?
1980.
Okay.
1980
Yeah.
is when she came here. But I'll say this to you, 23 years. Thank you for your service.
Yes,
number
Thank you
one.
very
absolutely.
much, John.
I mean, I only did 3, but the biggest mistake we made in this country is when we stopped taking people like myself, a dropout. I dropped out of high school, the Army still accepted me.
Yeah.
They educated me, they bought me my home.
Yeah.
And I can't thank them enough.
Yep.
That's all I can
Yep.
say. A lousy 3 years, that's all I did. I didn't do 23. God bless you for doing that.
So we have
Amazing.
about a minute, so if there's anything else, John, that you haven't discussed, if you'd like to briefly say anything.
Just to close out, Chelmsford is probably the best town in Massachusetts. We're way cooler than Lowell, so people should come here and hang out with us.
I doubt that.
I grew up in Centerville, it's Centerville and Pawtuckaville, but Chelmsford's a great town, and I don't really have anything to say, except I know we have holidays coming up, so I hope people have a good Thanksgiving. If I don't see you,
Well,
people
just
have a
say
good
you've forgotten your roots, that's all.
I don't think he has forgotten his roots, that's why he's saying
Another
what he
home
said.
run of a show. I love it. I agree with that. That was good. I'm Letticking. Thank you for having me.
There you go.
And
kid.
and
Good
don't
luck.
forget that you said that you were going to run again.
Oh, and I'm running for school committee next April. That should be
Really?
fun. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's challenging the number of
I'm
years that
trying,
I'm
we're
going.
trying to build a school in Chelmsford, and I'm on that project till I'm.
Well, that'll make Maria happy, because I know I talked to her and she was very concerned about whether you were gonna run. So that's good.
And what do you get paid to do on the school committee out there? How much do you get paid?
Zero.
Zero.
Yeah, none of us
You
got
should
any
at
money.
least give them 3, 4, 5,000. Oh, my.
Well, you know.
Yeah, you can also put in for expenses, you do have a line item. The other thing that happened in Chelmsford is that the question 6 for engine 3 and 5 passed. We had a permanent building committee meeting Tuesday night, and so we have a timeline in terms of what's going to happen, and you won't see too many shovels in the ground until 2026. If people are thinking about that, we'll talk about it different weeks we're here. Everybody have a great day. Everybody stay safe. I will see you next Thursday. Other people will see you tomorrow, and Bob has
Bye-bye.
Tuesdays.
Have a great day.